The sun was a dying ember over the village of Umudike, casting long, jagged shadows that looked like grasping fingers. In the center of the village square, the dust had not yet settled. "Look at her shoulders," mocked Chinedu, the village's loudest mouth, pointing a grease-stained finger. "Are those the arms of a woman or the trunk of an iroko tree?" The laughter that followed was sharp, like breaking glass. In the middle of the circle stood Adaze. She did not flinch. She stood 5 inches taller than most men, her skin the color of charred earth, her biceps rippling like restless pythons beneath her wrapper. While other girls practiced the delicate sway of the waist, Adaze spent her mornings hauling water logs that 3 men couldn't lift, and her evenings wrestling the stubborn roots of the earth. To the people of Umudike, beauty was a soft curve and a high-pitched giggle. Adaze was a thunderstorm in a village that only wanted a drizzle. But as the laughter grew louder, a cold wind swept through the square, a wind that smelled not of dust, but of old, wet iron and dried blood. The elders looked toward the forbidden forest. The laughter died. Something was coming, and it didn't care about the size of a woman's waist. Adaze's life had always been a series of closed doors. Her father, a blacksmith who had prayed for 7 sons and got only 1 daughter, had raised her in the heat of the forge. She grew up breathing soot and swinging the heavy hammer. By the time she was 16, her back was a map of hard muscle and her hands were calloused enough to pick up a hot coal without flinching. "You are ruining her," her mother would cry. "No man will pay the bride price for a soldier in a skirt." But Adaze didn't care for bride prices. She loved the way her body felt, strong, capable, and unyielding. She felt like a fortress. The mockery started when the great drought hit. The village grew frustrated, and frustrated people look for someone to blame. They blamed Adaze's unnatural strength. They said she had offended the earth goddess Ani by behaving like a man. "She is a freak," the young women whispered at the stream, looking at Adaze's powerful thighs. "Perhaps she is an Ogbanje who forgot to die." Adaze ignored them all, until the night the shadow stalker arrived. It began with the livestock. First, a goat was found drained of blood, its ribcage snapped like dry twigs. Then a cow. Then the village drunkard Ozuo vanished, leaving only a single sandal and a trail of black slime that sizzled on the grass. The chief called a meeting. The hunters, men with scarred chests and long Dane guns, boasted they would kill the beast at dawn. Adaze stood at the back, her heavy arms folded. "It is not an animal," she said, her voice deep and steady. "An animal eats what it kills. This thing, it only destroys." The hunters laughed. "Go back to your father's bellows, girl," Chinedu spat. "This is work for men, not for monsters like you." That night, the mist rolled in. It was thick like curdled milk, swallowing the huts one by one. And then came a scream. It wasn't a scream of a man. It was the sound of metal being torn apart. The hunters charged into the mist. Shots rang out, boom, boom, followed by the sound of snapping bone. One by one, the brave men of Umudike scrambled back into the light of the torches, their faces white with terror. "It's a spirit," they wailed. "Bullets pass right through it." In the chaos, the chief's youngest daughter, a girl of 6, was snatched. The creature, a towering mass of shadows and obsidian claws, retreated toward the cave of whispers. The village fell into a deathly silence. The men looked at the ground. The hunters cleaned their useless guns. No one moved. Except Adaze. She didn't grab a gun. She didn't grab a spear. She went to her father's forge and picked up the great sledge, a hammer so heavy it had been bolted to the floor for 20 years. With a single vein-popping grunt, Adaze ripped the hammer from its bolts. "What are you doing?" her mother screamed. "You will die." "I was built for this," Adaze said. As she walked toward the forest, the villagers watched in stunned silence. As she stepped into the shadows, her skin began to gray. It no longer looked like flesh. it looked like granite. She wasn't an Ogbanje. She was something the village had forgotten existed, a stone guardian, a lineage of women born once every 100 years to protect the land when the gods went silent. Her muscles weren't a curse, they were her armor. The cave of whispers was cold. The creature stood over the shivering child and turned as Adaze approached. "You smell earth," the creature spoke, "but you are still meat." "I am the mountain," Adaze replied. The creature lunged. Its claws raked across Adaze's shoulder. There was no blood, only sparks. Stone rang against stone. Adaze swung the great sledge. The hammer struck with a crack that shook the cave walls. The creature slammed into the rock. The fight was brutal. Every blow that landed on Adaze was absorbed by stone and will. Her feet cracked the cave floor as she stood her ground. She seized the creature by the throat. "Mock my muscles now." With a roar that shook the forest, she crushed the spirit's essence back into the earth. At dawn, Adaze returned carrying the sleeping child in one arm and the great sledge in the other. Dust and ash clung to her skin. The villagers gathered. Chinedu stepped forward, his head bowed. "Adaze, we did not know. You thought I was ugly because I didn't look like a flower, but when the storm came, you didn't need a flower, you needed a wall." She walked past them, back to her forge. No feast followed, only silence. Fear replaced mockery. When Adaze passed through the market, people moved aside. She sat alone by her fire, her strength still growing. She had saved them, but she no longer belonged. She looked at her hands, the hands that were mocked, the hands that saved a life, and understood the cost. It is a lonely thing to be the mountain that protects the valley.